What if I told you that the most famous painting in the world, the one millions dream of seeing in person, is also the one most people barely look at? Imagine traveling across the globe, entering the grand halls of the Louvre, and standing before the Mona Lisa, the very image that has captured imaginations for centuries. And yet, research shows that the average visitor spends only about 15 seconds in front of her. Has this ever happened to you? That moment where something you've anticipated for so long seems to slip through your fingers almost instantly, leaving you questioning whether it was really worth the journey. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Now think about this. The Mona Lisa is more than just a portrait of a woman with a subtle smile. She's a cultural phenomenon, a global symbol, and, for many, the pinnacle of Renaissance art. Yet how can it be that a painting worth hundreds of millions, more even than Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi, which sold for a staggering $450 million in 2017, holds people's attention for such a fleeting moment? What you're about to discover might surprise you, because the story behind this masterpiece is layered with intrigue, mystery, and clever illusions that da Vinci embedded within his work. Leonardo wasn't just a painter. He was a visionary who blurred the lines between art and science, beauty, and intellect. When we place the Mona Lisa under the same lens, the surface begins to crack open, revealing secrets that make this painting far more than meets the eye. It's not just about a smile, it's about how our perception itself is manipulated, how a genius of the Renaissance used subtle tricks to hold our attention in ways we don't consciously notice. Stay with me until the end, because once you see how da Vinci carefully engineered this portrait, you'll never look at her the same way again. Picture it: 8 million visitors a year flocking to the Louvre. They gather in crowds, cameras raised high, hoping to capture their brief encounter with the enigmatic woman behind glass. And in those few seconds, most simply glance, snap a photo, and walk away. Yet the irony is that while people move on so quickly, the Mona Lisa herself was never rushed. Leonardo spent years, perhaps decades, perfecting her. Every shadow, every detail of her face, every layer of paint was a calculated decision. He carried her with him until the very end of his life, as though she was not just a commission, but a part of his soul. Why would one of the greatest minds in history devote so much of his life to a single painting? Why would this quiet portrait of a merchant's wife transcend time, culture, and geography to become the most recognized face in human history? These are the questions that draw us in, even when we don't realize it. They whisper to us through her gaze, through that impossible-to-define smile, through the very essence of the painting. And here's the fascinating part. Even though most people spend mere seconds in front of her, the Mona Lisa still manages to haunt them long after they've left. It's as if her mystery follows you, daring you to look again, daring you to ask what you missed. Could it be that this is exactly what da Vinci wanted? Could it be that the fleeting nature of our encounter is part of her design? In the next part, we'll peel back the layers of this enigma and uncover how Leonardo da Vinci may have deliberately crafted the Mona Lisa not just as a painting, but as an illusion, an invention that manipulates the human mind in ways both subtle and profound. If you enjoy uncovering hidden truths and exploring the mysteries behind art and history, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll always have a place to return to for more insights, stories, and revelations that spark curiosity and transformation. It all begins in Florence, in the year 1503. A wealthy silk merchant named Francesco del Giocondo approaches Leonardo da Vinci with what seems like a modest request: a portrait of his young wife, Lisa. Nothing out of the ordinary, just another commission in a city filled with art. But what was supposed to be simple turned into something entirely different. Leonardo didn't just paint Lisa. He transformed her into a symbol, a presence, a puzzle that would outlive not only him, but generations of artists, critics, and admirers. What started as a portrait became a journey, a lifelong obsession that he carried with him until the very end. Leonardo was never a man to settle for ordinary decisions. His mindset was one of constant transformation, constantly pushing the limits of what art could express. While others painted to please their patrons, he painted to uncover hidden truths. And with Lisa's portrait, he found the perfect canvas for this pursuit. Imagine him returning again and again to her. Enigmatic smile, layering glazes, adjusting shadows, searching not only for beauty, but for something beyond it, a reflection of the human soul. That smile was not painted in haste. It was sculpted slowly, with patience, as if each stroke was a decision loaded with meaning. Behind the scenes, Leonardo studied anatomy, optics, and even the way emotions appeared and disappeared across the human face. He wanted to understand not only how we look, but how we feel. Every refinement in her expression was part of a greater revelation, the possibility that art could capture movement, mood, and transformation in a way words never could. This explains why her smile seems alive, shifting like a secret that slips through your fingers every time you try to grasp it. It's as though Leonardo wanted us to confront the limits of perception itself. When you stand before her, you're not just looking at paint on a panel. You're entering Leonardo's experiment in how far vision and emotion can be stretched. He poured into this portrait the same energy he once gave to inventions and sketches of flying machines, armored vehicles, and anatomical studies. The Mona Lisa is not just a painting. It is the result of a lifetime of curiosity, the hidden truth of a man who never stopped asking questions. And that's why, more than 5 centuries later, she still impacts us in ways we can't always explain. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the Mona Lisa is more than a smile. It's a mirror, reflecting not only Leonardo's genius, but also our own interpretations, our own inner journey. Some see serenity, others see mystery, some even see sadness. What you see says as much about you as it does about her. That's the power of transformation that this work carries. It adapts, it shifts, it lives. And maybe that's why it has never lost its grip on the human imagination. Write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." Tell me why you think Leonardo kept returning to her smile. Was it about her, or was it about something he saw within himself? What strikes us first when we look at the Mona Lisa is not simply her smile, but the way she faces us. At a time when women in portraits were expected to avert their gaze, appearing modest and passive, she does the opposite. She looks straight at us, calm yet unwavering, confident without needing to exaggerate. That directness is powerful. It challenges the conventions of her era and places her in a different category of presence, one that feels timeless. It's almost as if she knows something we don't, as if she carries a hidden truth that waits to be uncovered in silence. Leonardo amplified that effect by stripping away unnecessary distractions. Her gown, while elegant, is deliberately understated. There is no lavish display of wealth, no excessive jewelry competing for attention. The simplicity was not an accident. It was a decision designed to guide our focus back to what truly mattered: her face, her gaze, her expression. This choice reflects Leonardo's mindset, his ability to see beyond decoration, to the essence of what he wanted us to feel. He understood that restraint could often be more impactful than opulence, a lesson that echoes in so many areas of life and art. Even the positioning of her hands carries meaning. Her arms rest gently, one folded over the other, embodying serenity and control. It's a posture of balance, a gesture that suggests inner harmony rather than rigid authority. Behind the scenes, Leonardo wasn't only painting a woman, he was shaping an image of transformation, the idea that power doesn't need to shout. True strength can be subtle, almost invisible, yet impossible to ignore once you encounter it. That is why her presence lingers in our memory. What's fascinating is how these small decisions, her gaze, her clothing, her folded hands, come together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The impact is not immediate, like a loud sound. It's gradual, like a thought that continues to echo long after you've left the room. This is part of the genius of Leonardo's vision. He knew that art could move us not only with grandeur, but with restraint, and that subtlety itself could be a revelation. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once we step beyond her posture and simplicity, we begin to notice how the world behind her, the imagined landscape, the horizon lines, the flowing water, was crafted to amplify the mystery and draw us into her journey. It's there, in the background, that another layer of Da Vinci's hidden truth begins to emerge, and that's where the portrait becomes something far more than a likeness of Lisa del Giocondo. Write in the comments, "I see the hidden details." Share which element speaks to you most, the gaze, the gown, or the gesture of her hands, and why you think Leonardo made those choices. Behind Mona Lisa's calm presence lies a landscape that feels almost dreamlike: soft hills, winding paths, rivers and bridges stretch out behind her, inspired by Tuscany, yet reimagined through Leonardo's imagination. At first glance, it feels natural, almost ordinary, but when we look more carefully, something shifts. The horizon on the left side does not match the horizon on the right. One sits slightly higher, the other lower, as if two different worlds were stitched together. For most painters, this would have been called a mistake. For Leonardo, it was a deliberate decision, a hidden truth waiting to play tricks on the mind. This imbalance unsettles us in ways we don't consciously register. Our brains are wired to seek balance and alignment, but when confronted with contradiction, the eye keeps moving, trying to resolve what it cannot. One moment, the landscape seems to tilt one way. The next moment, it tilts another. Without realizing it, we're caught in a cycle of shifting perceptions, and this subtle oscillation spills over into the figure of Lisa herself, creating the impression that she is not static, but alive, moving ever so slightly, almost breathing. That's the genius of Leonardo's mindset. He understood that reality could be manipulated not only by what was painted, but by how our minds respond to the unexpected. It's here that the portrait stops being just an image and becomes an experience. Leonardo created more than a likeness. He built an illusion that transforms depending on how we see it. The painting becomes interactive, centuries before technology gave us screens or virtual reality. And isn't that remarkable? To think that in the early 1500s, one man could engineer such a psychological experiment, embedding it inside a work of art, so that every viewer becomes part of the performance. The impact is powerful because it touches on something universal, the way perception shapes our journey. We don't see the world as it is, but as our minds interpret it. The crooked horizon behind Lisa is a revelation, a reminder that what feels stable may in fact be shifting beneath us. That was Da Vinci's brilliance, using art to mirror the uncertainties of life itself. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because Leonardo didn't stop at landscapes and horizons. He invented techniques that blurred boundaries, softened edges, and allowed emotions to live within shadows. It's in these choices that we find the next layer of the illusion, where science and art merge seamlessly into one vision. Write in the comments, "Perception is everything." Tell me if you've ever experienced a moment where what you saw kept changing the more you looked at it, because that's exactly the kind of impact Da Vinci wanted to leave behind. Leonardo's brilliance wasn't only in what he painted, but in how he painted it. The Mona Lisa feels alive because of a method he perfected, a technique that blurred the line between color and shadow, between reality and imagination. This approach, known as sfumato, softened every edge, dissolving the boundaries that normally separate light from darkness. Instead of sharp outlines, we see transitions that feel like mist, like a veil of atmosphere resting over her face and the world behind her. It is subtle, almost invisible, yet it changes everything. Look closely at her eyes, and you'll notice how there is no harsh border to define their shape. The shadows fade gently, almost as if they were part of her skin. Around her lips, this same softness makes her smile resist definition. Sometimes it is there, sometimes it isn't. That fluidity is not an accident. It's a decision, a calculated act of mastery, designed to trigger our perception in ways we don't fully understand. Leonardo knew that the human mind is drawn to ambiguity, that when something cannot be pinned down, it lingers, it haunts us. This is why her expression transforms depending on how long you look. She refuses to give you a single answer. Behind the scenes, Leonardo studied light not only as an artist but as a scientist. He observed how smoke fades into air, how fog wraps itself around a landscape, how shadows bend across the surface of skin. He wasn't just painting Lisa del Giocondo, he was painting the invisible forces that shape reality. The impact of this mindset was revolutionary, because it meant that a portrait could contain movement without ever moving, emotion without ever changing. It's almost like a hidden truth embedded in the paint, the recognition that life itself is not static, but in constant transformation. Think about how rare that is. In art, most paintings freeze time, capturing a single instant forever. But the Mona Lisa doesn't feel frozen. She feels suspended in a state of becoming, caught between moments. Her lips curve differently each time your eyes return to them. Her gaze follows you no matter where you stand. The effect is so subtle that centuries later we still argue about whether she is smiling, serious, or something in between. And maybe that's the real revelation. She is all of those things at once. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the enigma of her smile is not only about technique, but also about how our own vision works. Leonardo painted in a way that interacts with our perception itself, and the science behind that choice reveals why her expression has fascinated the world for more than 500 years. Write in the comments. She feels alive. Tell me what strikes you most about her presence. Is it the softness of her features, or the way her smile refuses to be fully defined? For generations, people have looked at the Mona Lisa and wondered why her face seems almost bare, why her eyes lack eyelashes, and her brow shows no trace of hair. Some took it as part of her mystery. Others assumed it was Leonardo's decision to leave her unfinished. But the hidden truth is simpler, and perhaps even more fascinating. Records from the 16th century confirm that she did once have eyebrows and lashes. They were meticulously painted, delicate strokes that added to her realism, but centuries of cleaning, touch-ups, and the natural wear of time erased them from view. What remains today is not absence by design, but the silent impact of history itself altering the image we see. There is another layer to this transformation. When we look at her now, we see soft, muted tones, as if the entire painting has been bathed in golden light. Yet this was not how Leonardo presented her originally. A copy made in 1503 by one of his own students reveals colors that are brighter, fresher, almost luminous. Her skin had more vibrancy, her garments more contrast, and the landscape behind her carried a sharper clarity. Imagine the impact she must have had in her first decades, when the colors still held the intensity of Leonardo's brush, before time dimmed them into the palette we now associate with her. The sepia veil that defines her presence today is the result of varnish, applied to protect her surface, slowly yellowing over 500 years. This varnish, like a filter spread across the canvas, has shifted how we perceive her expression and the atmosphere around her. Restoring it might reveal Lisa as she once was, closer to the student copy, but experts fear the risks. The painting has become too fragile, too precious to undergo such a transformation, leaving us with a version that is at once authentic and altered. It's almost poetic. The journey of the Mona Lisa has been shaped not just by Leonardo's decisions, but by the passage of time itself. This opens a deeper question. How much of what we admire today is Leonardo's creation, and how much is the story of centuries layered upon her? We're not only looking at a masterpiece, we're looking at the scars of history, the choices of restorers, the effects of light, varnish, and atmosphere. The portrait we know is as much the product of time as it is of genius. That may be why she feels so alive, because like us, she has changed, endured, and carried the marks of her own journey. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the mystery of her endurance is also tied to who Leonardo was beyond the canvas, a man whose mindset saw art and science not as separate pursuits, but as parts of the same revelation. And it's in his life, his notebooks, and his endless curiosity that we begin to see how the Mona Lisa became more than a portrait. It became his greatest invention. Write in the comments, time leaves its mark. Share what you think. Should the Mona Lisa ever be restored to her original colors, or does her aged appearance carry a meaning of its own? What makes the Mona Lisa more than just a beautiful portrait is not only the way she looks but the mind that created her. Her fame is inseparable from Leonardo himself, a man who never confined his genius to one discipline. To him, painting was only one expression of a restless curiosity, one piece of a much larger puzzle. He saw the world as an endless web of connections, where anatomy, music, physics, and even the mechanics of flight could all teach him something about the hidden truth of existence. The Mona Lisa is, in a way, the embodiment of that mindset, a work where the scientist, the engineer, and the artist merge seamlessly into one vision. Leonardo considered himself more scientist than painter, and that perspective transformed his art. He dissected human bodies in secret, studying muscles, bones, and the way skin stretched across the face, not out of morbid fascination, but to understand how life was built. He filled his notebooks with revelations about water currents, light refraction, and sound vibrations. This was not just knowledge for its own sake, it was fuel for his creative journey. Every discovery shaped the decisions he made with his brush. Every sketch behind the scenes left traces in the way he painted her gaze, her skin, her lifelike expression. When you look at the Mona Lisa, you're not only seeing a portrait of Lisa del Giocondo, you're witnessing centuries of ideas, condensed into a single image. In his notebooks, Leonardo sketched parachutes, helicopters, armored vehicles, even concepts that resemble modern robotics. These weren't fantasies. They were attempts to understand how nature itself worked, so that human hands could one day imitate it. And when you compare those inventions to the Mona Lisa, the connection becomes clear. Both were experiments in transformation, in capturing movement, possibility, and depth. That is why her presence feels so different from any other painting of her time. She carries the weight of a man who believed art was not separate from science, who refused to choose between beauty and truth. It was this fusion that gave her life, making her not just a portrait but an invention, one of his greatest creations alongside the sketches of machines that wouldn't be built until centuries later. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because within Leonardo's obsession with the mechanics of life lies the key to her most enduring mystery, her smile. It is here, at the intersection of vision and illusion, that his understanding of perception itself changed the way we experience art forever. Write in the comments, "Genius has no limits." Tell me what fascinates you most about Leonardo, his role as an artist, a scientist, or the way he blended both into something the world had never seen before. Among the countless sketches that fill Leonardo's notebooks, there is one page that feels like a direct key to understanding the Mona Lisa. On it, he drew studies of lips, tracing the subtle ways expressions shift as muscles move, how the slightest change in shadow or curve can completely alter the emotion we perceive. It was not a casual exercise, it was research. Behind the scenes, Leonardo was preparing himself to create an illusion no one had ever attempted before, a smile that could transform depending on the eyes of the beholder. That decision gave birth to one of the most debated features in art history, the elusive grin of the Mona Lisa. Centuries later, science would reveal the mechanics of this phenomenon. Neurophysiologist Dr. Margaret Livingstone discovered that the secret lies not in the paint itself, but in how we see. When our central vision focuses directly on her mouth, the details become sharper, stripping the smile of its warmth and leaving only the faint trace of a smirk. But when we look into her eyes, the mouth slips into our peripheral vision, where shadows and blurred edges dominate. In that softer field, the smile blooms, wider and more radiant, almost as if she is amused by the attention. This duality is the hidden truth behind her expression. She is not fixed, but fluid. She adapts to us, to the way we choose to look at her. And that is what makes her so alive. The experience becomes personal, different for every viewer, a silent dialogue where perception itself plays the role of co-creator. This is not just a portrait, it is a psychological experiment, disguised as art, centuries ahead of its time. Think about the impact of this. Most works of art present a single face, a single mood, but the Mona Lisa transforms depending on your decisions. She reveals that reality is not absolute, it shifts according to perspective. Leonardo's mindset was clear. To capture the complexity of human experience, he had to move beyond static representation and instead invite the viewer into a journey of perception. That is why she has never lost her mystery, because she is never exactly the same for anyone. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the story of her smile is not only about illusion, but also about how the painting itself traveled through history, carried by Leonardo into France, and eventually into the hands of kings. This journey shaped her destiny, making her more than a masterpiece, turning her into a symbol of power, admiration, and desire. Write in the comments, "I see her change." Tell me if you've ever felt that strange shift in her smile, as if she was revealing something different each time you looked. When Leonardo accepted the invitation to move to France in 1516, he took with him not only his sketches, notes, and unfinished projects, but also the Mona Lisa, a painting he guarded for years as though it carried a piece of his own spirit. After his death in 1519, King Francis I acquired the portrait, and from that moment on it became more than a private masterpiece. It entered the realm of power and prestige. To own her was to possess a symbol of intellect, refinement, and mystery, and this changed the trajectory of her story forever. Writers and artists of the Renaissance quickly recognized what Leonardo had created. Giorgio Vasari, in his famous accounts of the greatest painters, described her with words that almost defy belief. He wrote that her nose, with its tender lines, seemed alive, that her lips blended with her face so seamlessly they looked like flesh rather than paint. He even suggested that one could see the pulse beating in her throat, as though Leonardo had given her a spark of life itself. These weren't mere compliments. They were revelations of how profoundly the portrait blurred the line between representation and reality. For Vasari, she was not just an image. She was an encounter. Centuries later, the painting continued to hold a magnetic pull. Napoleon Bonaparte himself was so captivated by her presence that he demanded she be placed in his personal chambers. Imagine the weight of that decision. One of the most powerful men in history choosing to keep her by his side, as if her gaze provided a kind of silent counsel, a reminder of something timeless amid the turbulence of empire. It shows how deeply this work transcended the world of galleries and art lovers, weaving itself into politics, ambition, and the private lives of those who sought power. This behind-the-scenes journey reveals how the Mona Lisa has always been more than a portrait. She has been a companion to kings, an object of admiration to generals, and a source of inspiration to writers who saw in her something beyond human. Each transfer of ownership, each gaze from a figure of influence, transformed her into a symbol of continuity and fascination. The impact of these decisions carried her into the center of cultural memory, ensuring that she was never forgotten, always at the crossroads of art and history. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the most dramatic moment of her journey was yet to come, the day she vanished. And it was in that disappearance that the Mona Lisa's fame would ignite like never before, capturing the imagination of the entire world. Write in the comments, "She belongs to history." Share what you think this means. Does the Mona Lisa's true power lie in her beauty, or in the extraordinary journey she has taken through time? On an August morning in 1911, something happened that would forever transform the destiny of the Mona Lisa. She was stolen from the Louvre, lifted right off the wall where she had hung quietly for over a century. The scandal spread like wildfire. Newspapers across the world reported the disappearance, and what had once been the cherished possession of kings suddenly became the subject of global obsession. People flocked to the museum not to admire masterpieces, but to stare at the empty space where she had once been. It was as if her absence made her presence stronger than ever before. For 2 years, she vanished from sight. Rumors and speculation filled the air, some claiming she had been destroyed, others convinced she had been smuggled away by a secret collector. The uncertainty fueled fascination, turning her into something more than a painting. She became a symbol of mystery itself, a story everyone wanted to solve. And when the truth emerged, it was almost as dramatic as the theft. Vincenzo Peruggia, an Italian handyman who had once worked at the Louvre, was caught trying to sell her to an art dealer in Florence. Hidden behind his actions was a powerful belief that the Mona Lisa had been stolen centuries earlier by Napoleon, and that he, Perugia, was simply returning her to her rightful homeland. Of course, this was a misunderstanding. History shows the painting entered France long before Napoleon's reign, but the decision reveals something fascinating about mindset and identity. Perugia saw the painting not just as art, but as heritage, as a hidden truth tied to his national pride. His journey, misguided as it was, became part of her story, and it was precisely this theft, this dramatic chapter, that elevated the Mona Lisa into a global icon. Her recovery was celebrated like the return of a lost treasure, and from that moment on, her fame was no longer confined to art circles, but expanded to touch ordinary people everywhere. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the theft not only changed her reputation, it reshaped how we think about value, ownership, and the impact of absence itself. Sometimes, what disappears for a time returns with even greater force, carrying new meaning. That's exactly what happened with the Mona Lisa, and it's why her gaze today feels inseparable from the extraordinary journey she has taken. Write in the comments, even absence has power. Tell me how you see it. Do you think the theft was a tragedy that scarred her story, or the very event that transformed her into the legend she is today? When Vincenzo Perugia was finally arrested, his punishment was surprisingly light, just over a year in prison. Yet while he served his sentence in near obscurity, the Mona Lisa emerged from the shadows more powerful than ever. Her theft and recovery had made headlines across the globe, and what once had been a Renaissance treasure became a universal icon. It was as if her journey of disappearance and return had given her a second birth, a transformation from masterpiece to legend. But even as her fame grew, so did the questions about her true identity. Was she really Lisa del Giocondo, the wife of the Florentine merchant who commissioned Leonardo? Or had the artist changed her so much across years of retouching that she no longer resembled the original sitter at all? Some scholars have gone further, suggesting the portrait might not represent Lisa at all, but Leonardo himself, painted in a feminized form, almost like a hidden self-portrait. Others point to Salai, his longtime companion and possible lover, whose features appear in more than one of Leonardo's works. The idea that her face could carry multiple layers of meaning only deepens the mystery. Even psychology has stepped into the debate. Sigmund Freud, fascinated by Leonardo's life, proposed that the painting reflected not a commission, but a personal memory, an echo of Leonardo's own mother. According to his interpretation, the enigmatic smile we see is not Lisa's at all, but the smile of Caterina, Leonardo's mother, imprinted in his subconscious and brought to life through art. While Freud's theory is speculative, it reveals how deeply people have sought to uncover hidden truths in the portrait. Every angle, every detail invites projection, interpretation, and revelation. And perhaps that is the secret of her impact. She is not only one woman but many possibilities. She becomes whatever we bring to her: wife, lover, mother, or even Leonardo himself. The decisions of viewers across centuries have turned her into a mirror of our own imaginations, reflecting not just her story, but our need to find meaning. Behind the scenes, this may have been part of Leonardo's intention all along, to create something so fluid that it would resist certainty forever. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the blending of myth, memory, and identity in the Mona Lisa opens the door to a larger question. What if the real masterpiece isn't just the painting itself, but the way it forces us to confront the mysteries of human perception and desire? Write in the comments, she could be anyone. Tell me what you believe. Do you think the Mona Lisa truly represents Lisa del Giocondo? Or do you see traces of another story hidden in her gaze? The Mona Lisa is often described as the ultimate fusion of art and science, and in truth, that is where her power lies. Leonardo was not satisfied with simply capturing a likeness. He wanted to build an experience that embodied his belief that beauty and knowledge were inseparable. Every brushstroke reveals a man obsessed with the mechanics of light, the mathematics of proportion, and the psychology of perception. It is no coincidence that her gaze and smile feel alive, because behind them is the entire mindset of a man who treated painting as both experiment and revelation. She became not just an image of a woman, but the living symbol of Leonardo's philosophy. Although history says the painting took 16 years, in reality, it contains a lifetime. The Mona Lisa is not the product of one season or even one commission. It carries the weight of his dissections, his studies of anatomy, his countless sketches of rivers, clouds, and shadows. It reflects the same curiosity that drove him to design flying machines and study the flight of birds. This was his transformation of experience into vision, his decision to pour everything he had learned, every hidden truth uncovered in the quiet hours of his notebooks, into a single canvas. That is why, when we look at her, it feels less like observing art and more like standing in the presence of an idea. Yet, strangely, her rise to universal fame did not come solely from Leonardo's genius. It was the scandal of her disappearance in 1911 that transformed her from masterpiece into myth. The theft made her more than a painting. It made her a cultural icon. Her story spread beyond the walls of museums, crossing borders, entering the collective imagination of people who may never study Renaissance art, but know her face instantly. This is the impact of narrative. Sometimes it is not only the creation itself, but the journey it takes that shapes destiny. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the Mona Lisa's story reminds us that legends are often forged not just by brilliance, but by the strange twists of history, the decisions, the accidents, the behind-the-scenes moments that no one could predict, yet change everything. Write in the comments. Legends are shaped by time. Share whether you believe the Mona Lisa's true power comes from Leonardo's brush alone, or from the extraordinary journey that turned her into the most famous painting in the world. Walter Pater once described the Mona Lisa as a figure older than the rocks she sits among, timeless and eternal, as if she carried within her face the memories of centuries. That kind of language might sound exaggerated, but when you look at her, it's difficult to shake the feeling that she belongs to something far greater than her moment in history. She seems both anchored in the Renaissance and outside of time altogether, a presence that has survived wars, thefts, and transformations, yet still stares back at us with the same unshaken calm. This is the hidden truth of her endurance. She embodies not just beauty, but permanence, the ability of an image to exist beyond the boundaries of an era. The French critic Théophile Gautier captured this sensation with another metaphor, calling her a sphinx of beauty, a creature that does not simply exist, but questions you silently, pressing against your imagination with something infinite and inexpressible. What is she thinking? Why does her smile resist interpretation? It is precisely because she offers no clear answers that we project our own emotions into her. She becomes sadness for some, serenity for others, temptation, melancholy, or even joy. Each viewer carries their own journey to the canvas, and in her stillness, she absorbs it, transforms it, and reflects it back. This is her real power. She does not dictate meaning, she invites it. She is not fixed. She is fluid. Leonardo painted her with such mastery of shadow, softness, and ambiguity that she became a mirror of the human psyche. That's why she continues to fascinate, because we see ourselves in her. In that gaze, in that subtle smile, lies the impact of projection, the revelation that art is not just about the painter's vision, but about the decisions we make as viewers. Behind the scenes, Leonardo may have understood this better than anyone, crafting a portrait designed not only to capture a face, but to spark an endless conversation between image and imagination. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the Mona Lisa's universality doesn't just rest on her mystery. It also forces us to question what she might have become if her story had unfolded differently. Would she still hold the same grip on us without the drama of her theft, without the centuries of speculation, without the layers of narrative that shaped her legend? Write in the comments. She reflects me. Tell me what you see when you look at her. Do you recognize mystery, serenity, or perhaps something of yourself hidden in her expression? Even if the scandal of her disappearance had never taken place, the Mona Lisa would still hold her place in history. Her fame might have grown more slowly, perhaps with less mass reproduction and fewer imitations, but her impact would remain undeniable. she carries within her something beyond narrative, a fusion of science and art that makes her more than an object of admiration. She is a study in perception, a hidden truth disguised as a portrait, a lesson in how innovation and imagination can transform even the simplest commission into something eternal. Leonardo da Vinci understood that to truly change the way people see, he had to go further than technique. He treated painting as a laboratory, a space where observation, experimentation, and vision merged into a single act of creation. The Mona Lisa is not only a portrait, she is the ultimate invention of his restless mind. Her softness is a revelation of light, her smile a psychological experiment, her gaze a puzzle designed to outlast centuries. She is both a work of art and a device that continues to test the human eye and mind, long after Leonardo himself has passed. It's no accident that she still feels so contemporary. In her lies the mindset of transformation, the decision to bridge disciplines to erase the lines that separate science from beauty. Her endurance is proof that the greatest works are not bound by time. They continue to breathe, to adapt, to provoke new interpretations. She has survived not because of chance alone, but because she was engineered to live in the imagination, to inspire revelations every time someone stands before her. What makes her unique is that she was never static. She was created to move without moving, to change without altering, to invite us into a journey that never ends. That is why she is as relevant today as she was in the courts of kings and the hands of emperors. She embodies not just Leonardo's genius, but the essence of human curiosity itself, the drive to seek meaning in mystery and truth in illusion. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because to understand why she has become the symbol she is today, we must also explore what she represents about us, our longing for answers, our attraction to enigma, and the way a single image can carry the weight of universal questions. Write in the comments, "She never ends." Tell me why you think the Mona Lisa still captivates us after 5 centuries. Does her power come from Leonardo's hand, or from the way humanity has chosen to carry her story forward? And if you've stayed with me until this point, it probably means the Mona Lisa has stirred something in you too. That's exactly why I bring these stories here, to dive into the hidden truths, the revelations, and the details that change the way we see art and history. So, make sure you're subscribed, because there's so much more on this journey that you won't want to miss. If you made it all the way here, let me know in the comments by writing, "I'm with you until the end." I'd love to see how many of us are connected through this same curiosity. And of course, give this video a like. It's a simple way of telling me this kind of content matters to you. There's a video right here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me over there.